taking a break today from my DIY videos to talk about a much requested topic, which is pet and ESA travel on an airplane. I get these questions from strangers a lot every time I travel with my dog, so I want to make sure I cover everything you need to know. I'm going to talk about my top 8 tips, let you know my experience, and discuss the updated policies for most of the commercial airlines in the United States. I'm going to discuss 10 of them, including American Airlines, Delta, Southwest, Allegiant, Frontier. Yeah, so let's get started. Timestamps will be down below, so you can skip through whichever section you think would be helpful. So first of all, I'm going to tell you what I won't be covering, and that's going to be international travel as well as Alaskan and Hawaiian Airlines. All I can tell you is that they do have special requirements like signing a specific document, or maybe your dog isn't allowed in cabin. I don't have experience with international travel. I also won't cover cargo compartments. Basically what that means is that your dog is transported in the luggage area of the airplane, not where the people go. I also won't cover multiple pets. So if you are a person that needs to travel with more than one pet, all I can tell you is that some airlines do allow a max of 2 pets in one carrier, provided they can comfortably move. So example, 2 Chihuahuas in one bag. If after watching this you decide you don't want to travel with your pet, then I have a recommendation for you as well, so stay tuned. Most airlines, if you are taking ESA, do require at least 3 forms. The only one that doesn't is Southwest, and I'll get to that later. But the 3 forms are usually the veterinary health form, which means you have to go make an appointment with your vet and make sure he signs the document provided by your airline saying that your dog is in good condition to fly. The mental health professional form is basically provided from a licensed medical professional who has diagnosed you with either anxiety or depression or whatever condition you may have that allows you to request an emotional service animal. The last one is the animal behavior form. That's a form where you consent that your dog will not be disruptive or relieving himself in the airport or in the airplane. And if he does, you are liable to check him in as a pet. Sometimes even they won't let you board. So be mindful of that. The price you pay for your pet for the travel is per way. So for example, I used to live in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and I would visit my family in El Paso, Texas all the time. I had a layover in Dallas, and that one does not count. It's only per way. So from Fayetteville to El Paso, I'm gonna have to pay $125, and then again from El Paso to Fayetteville, I'm gonna pay another $125, and then I have to check in my luggage, which is what, $25 per way, so it ends up being $300 to travel with my pet.
Alright guys, so I lied. It's actually 9 airlines that I'll be going through, and the following graphs contain information of the price for each way, the requirements, and the booking for each of the airlines that I will be covering. Feel free to press pause at any time to check out your favorite airline.
Alright, now I'm going to give you my top 8 tips. Some of these tips may not apply to any other pets than dogs, simply because that is my experience traveling with a pet. My recommendation, first of all, is always make your reservation at least 2 weeks in advance. Now, even though some of these airlines require only 48 hours notice, it is always better and it leaves you more at ease if you reserve it well in advance. I would recommend at least 2 weeks, but I usually do a month or 2 in advance. Remember, your pet does count as your carry-on bag allotment, which means you will have to check in any other baggage that you're taking to your trip, so be mindful of those additional fees. Okay, so my number 1 tip I'm going to give you is your carrier. You want to select one that fits the dimensions required by your airline. I'm going to show you 2 different carriers that I have used in the past. The first one, and my most recommended, is the Sherpa bag. This is what it looks like. And it is very sturdy. It has a little bag over here in this side, so you can put whatever you want. Cotton like placemat thing, I don't remember what it's called, but this is the one I recommend. The other one that I had bought is this one that also is compliant with the airline regulations, and I liked it because you can roll it. But look at how small this is. I'm 5'2" and I'm still struggling to get down there, so obviously this isn't very good. And then it also has, like, you can turn it into a backpack. So that's what I liked about this, is because even though he's 16 pounds, he can get very heavy. But I would get crap all the time from airline attendants and thinking that it wasn't compliant, but it is. The thing that you have to do is that you have to take off the bottom. So basically, in order for it to fit under your under the seat in front of you, you have to take off this. And so it was just such a hassle for them to ask me all the time, like, are you sure this is compliant? And they would go follow me to my seat and make sure that it was fitting, and it was just such a hassle. I'll leave links to everything down in the description. Now, if your dog has never traveled before, I recommend that at least 2 weeks before your travel date, put the carrier in a place where he is used to being. So for example, the living room. And you want to make sure that you constantly put a couple of treats here and there just so he associates it with something positive. And maybe while you're watching TV, put him in there and see how he reacts. If he is behaving properly, throw in some treats in there, again, to reinforce that behavior. This allows him to get used to the carrier, and that way he won't freak out the day of. Hey guys, if you're liking this so far, please give it a thumbs up for Thor. Tip number 2, check for pet relief areas well in advance for any airports that you're going to be in, including your layovers, because you want to make sure your pet is taking a breather out of his bag and you know, relieving himself in designated areas. Now, most airlines will actually say service animal relief areas, but that's okay. You can take your dog in there. Nobody's gonna be an a-hole and tell you you can't, or at least nobody has been to me, because they're relieving themselves in a designated area. Tip number 3 is playtime. Before your trip, 3 to 4 hours before, I would recommend either tiring him out by playing with him or going to a park, walking a mile or 2, and that way he's much more relaxed in the airplane. My tip number 4 is actually materials that you should bring. So number 1 is a water bottle. This is the water bottle that I use for my dog, and it's very efficient. Obviously, do not fill it up until after you have passed security screening. Obviously, don't allow him to drink a whole bunch of water. It's not recommended. Just like we do get thirsty in the up in the air, they obviously do too. So if he can have a few sips. Also, treats. Make sure you're taking his favorite treats so you can put him in his carry-on bag. Remember that you cannot, under any circumstances, take your dog out of the carrier while you're at the airport or in the airplane. Some airports may be a little bit more lenient where you know, if you're at the gate or whatever, he's fine, he can get out. Like when I was in El Paso, the lady immediately told me, like, is he a service dog or is he an ESA dog? And I was like, no, he's not. And so she's like, put him back in his bag. So I had to do that, obviously. And so just be mindful of that. So that's why I recommend all of these items to bring with you, is so that he can be a little bit more entertained in his little carrier. Also, you can throw in there his favorite toy, some puppy pads, documents, and ID tags. Now, even though sometimes they may not ask you for them, it's always recommended that you take all his records. Always consult your vet that you're traveling with your dog. This is because even though it may not be required for a pet to have like a health certificate form in cabin, your vet knows more about your dog's well-being and health condition. So if he doesn't think it's right for you to travel with your pet, don't. Something else you can bring is anxiety treats. I personally haven't really tried any, but I know that there are some that last maybe like 4 hours for a trip. It may be helpful for your dog to like calm him down. Please consult with your vet to see if that is an option for you. Tip number 5 is to arrive at least 2 hours early. You have to check in your dog, whether you're a pet or you're an ESA, you have to check him in the counter, and so it takes up a little bit more time, and that's always, I always like to be more relaxed in my trip, and so I do it 2 hours before. You don't just use the kiosks, you actually have to go to a representative, turn in your documents or show your documents, whatever. Tip number 6 is regarding security screening. So you're gonna make sure that you take off his leash, put it in his carrier bag, and then let the carrier go through the x-ray while you carry your dog and go through the screening. Once you get through, be sure to put his leash back on and put him back in his carrier, because again, he's not supposed to be out of his carrier if he is a pet. Number 7 is regarding boarding. So at the gate, you want to be sure that you are either the first one to board if you have that option, or the last one. And that's because you are going to have to struggle adjusting yourself in your seat, the pet and everything, making sure he fits under the seat, and it's a hassle. I don't like to have people in back of me waiting and whatever, but if you're okay with that, you know, obviously it's fine. Everybody has to wait, but I recommend going last. Number 8 is during your flight, make sure your dog is feeling comfortable and at ease. So one of the ways you can do this is actually by asking for ice. At airlines, they obviously give you beverages and some snacks here and there, but always ask for water with ice. You drink the water and give the ice to your dog. That helps him with his thirst, and that helps him with his anxiety. The reason why you can't just ask for something for your dog is because they're not allowed to give you something for your dog. Unfortunately, you know, some flight attendants may be nice and lenient and they will give it to you. Remember, when you're in their plane, he has to be in the carrier. You cannot take him out for whatever reason if he is a pet. If he is an ESA and he is about the size of a 2-year-old, he can be in your lap, so that's fine. But if he is a pet, he cannot come out, not even his head. Don't get yourself in trouble. Make sure he always stays under the seat in front of you and does not even stick out his head or whatever. They're not supposed to. Now, for those of you wondering, how can I get an ESA? Let me tell you some information. So basically, an emotional support animal is what ESA stands for, and a lot of people have fake letters and documentation on their ESA. My recommendation is don't do it, because it affects those who actually do need their service dog and ESA, and it's just it's actually against the law in some states, so be very careful of that. Now, if you do need it, here's what you do. You have to go to a licensed therapist or a psychiatrist and make sure that they give you a letter that confirms that you are indeed in need of an emotional support animal for travel and for housing, and what the conditions state and that they're under your care and all that. They have to give you that letter. Also, if you classify your dog as an ESA and he's actually disruptive and barking and lunging and relieving himself in the airport, flight representatives will immediately ask you to check him in as a pet, as that is not how service animals and ESAs should be acting, or they might even deny you boarding, so be very careful. Have you watched the entire video and realized that this is not for you and you actually do not want to travel with your pet? Well, I do have a recommendation for you, and that is Rover. Rover is basically an app where you can book services specific to your dog. So if you need a pet sitter, if you need a dog walker, if you need someone to stay in your house and take care of your pet, they have that option. Or if you just want someone to occasionally visit your pet, make sure he has food and water and gets walked, they have that option as well. Or if you want someone to take care of your dog in their home, you have that option as well. I signed up as a sitter just to see what the requirements would be, like what they would need me to do in order to become a sitter or whatever. And basically they ask for your social security, they do a background check, so it is very trustworthy app, and you get to see the reviews from the sitters, and you can also adjust the settings to what you want it to be. I recently had to use it because I traveled to a destination where I couldn't have my dog and nobody can take care of it at the time, so I had to go with the stranger option because daycares cost a pretty penny. And if I can get someone to not have my dog in a kennel, that would be awesome. So I basically found a sitter that had a home, had a yard, and she actually had a dog as well, and so I thought it was perfect for my little dog to play with someone and he won't be alone, and it was perfect. She was great. I was skeptical at first because it's a stranger, and it is a very reliable application, and I highly recommend it if you're going to go out of town. I'll leave the link below if you want to register for it. And also the great thing about it is that they constantly send pictures. Every day I got a picture from the sitter, what she was doing with my dog, what the dog was doing. Alright guys, that's all I have for you today. Please do your own research as the policies are constantly changing, and it's important that you know that the advice I gave in this video is what worked for me, but it may be different for other people, for other dogs, or for other pets, and it's always important to do your research. But I really hope that this helped you, and if you think it did, please give a thumbs up and consider subscribing. I appreciate you all, and I hope you have a great day.